In the future, a pharmaceutical company named WECT causes a disaster that allows a virus to spread across the country. We find a group of young people trying to defeat this company, which has been conducting experiments on children for some time to find a cure for the deadly virus. They find a train carrying the company's cargo, along with children and teenagers being used for experiments. Two young rebels are following it. We see Jorge and Brenda in one car and Thomas and Vince in another. To distract the train, Brenda shoots the driver, who immediately calls for backup. A group of guards emerges and opens fire on them. Jorge is forced to drive while returning fire. On the other side, Vince brings his car close to the train so Thomas can attach the hook and jump onto the train. When Vince tries to follow him, his tire blows out and the car sways violently left and right. Vince is forced to jump quickly before the hook snaps and the car flips over. At this moment, a WECT aircraft arrives and opens fire. Jorge and Brenda drive away to avoid being killed, while Thomas and Vince run on top of the train. They find a group of guards coming up to meet them on the roof. The young men jump down, and Vince plants a bomb while Thomas shoots at the guards. When the bomb explodes, the guards are blown away, and the last few cars of the train are separated from the rest. Meanwhile, the aircraft is still chasing Jorge and Brenda, who stop their car and pretend to surrender. When the soldiers descend from the aircraft to arrest them, they fall into a ground trap. The rebels emerge from their hideout and surround them. Even the pilot is captured, and now the rebels commandeer the aircraft as well. On the other side at the train, a second group of rebels emerges from hiding and begins separating the cars from the train. WECT guards arrive and open fire on them, forcing Thomas and his friends to focus on shooting back. At this time, the aircraft arrives and lowers the hook, which they attach to the train car. The young men cling to the car, and Vince jumps on at the last moment, rising with them. A little later, the aircraft lowers the carriage into the rebels' hideout. They free the prisoners, but Thomas is upset because he does not find his friend Minho, whom the company had kidnapped. Afterward, Vince gives a speech to the new youth, explaining that the company wanted them because they are immune to the virus and wanted to experiment on them. But the rebels do not agree with these experiments. That is why they are repairing this ship to escape the island. In the next scene, Thomas asks one of the new boys if he heard any important information while he was held. He learns that the train was heading toward a specific city, which in itself is strange because there are supposedly no cities left. Jorge tells them he was there a few years ago. It is called the Last City, and WECT has established its main headquarters of operations there. Therefore, it is impossible for them to attack it. However, Thomas is determined to go and save his friend. Vince refuses to endanger the lives of the rebels. At this time, they hear a message on the radio, so they run to cut the power and hide as WECT aircraft scan the place. They do not find anything, but they get very close to the hideout, so the group agrees to leave as soon as possible. At night, while everyone is asleep, Thomas sneaks out to go save Minho alone. However, Newt and Frypan catch him and insist on going with him. On the other side, we see Minho waking up in the camp where he lived during the experiment. He finds boys standing far away, but when he calls to them, no one answers. He finds another boy running and follows him into a hut, but he suddenly finds himself in a mysterious corridor. The door opens, and a monster called a griever emerges. Minho runs immediately and realizes this place is a maze. He keeps finding dead ends and hears voices discussing his performance. Sometimes he sees flashes of a doctor examining him. Suddenly, his body freezes, and he finds himself flying up and sticking to the ceiling, where the griever pins him with its claws while Minho screams. Here we discover that Minho is in a lab, being forced to live a simulation against his will, so WECT scientists can draw blood from him. Returning to Thomas and his friends, we find them driving through a dark tunnel. They find a creature that looks like a zombie, called a crank. They stop and think about how to avoid it, but then they find a group of these creatures surrounding the car and banging on the doors. The young men speed up the car just as one of the creatures jumps on the window and keeps hitting it. Frypan drives next to another car to knock this creature off. Unfortunately, this causes them to crash, and the car flips over with them inside. Luckily, Thomas breaks the window to get out, and his friends get out too. At this moment, a crank comes at them, so Frypan shoots it. He then sees another group of cranks coming toward them. The young men run, but they find the exit blocked and cranks surrounding them from all sides. Frypan shoots as many as he can until his ammo runs out. At this moment, a car arrives, and we find Jorge and Brenda inside, coming to rescue them. While Brenda shoots a few of them, the young men get in the car and Jorge drives off immediately. Thus, the young men escape the tunnel without a single scratch. When they get on the road, they see the last city from afar, and Jorge notices the company has built a massive wall around it. At this time, the company director Ava meets with the board members and tells them that the citizens have started to lose hope of finding a cure, especially since the wall makes them wary. She then tells them she managed to extract a serum from Minho, and they have started working on the cure. However, the board members are tired of the excuses and want to use the money to build safe zones. At that time, Teresa interrupts. We know she was Thomas's girlfriend, but betrayed him to work with Wecht. She gives them a speech about hope and sacrifice and convinces them to pray for the experiments to succeed. Returning to Thomas and the guys, they manage to reach the slums around the wall. They find many protesters standing and asking for help from the city. Thomas does not notice that the tattoo on his neck is glowing and sending his location to the company. He and the guys hide in the crowd to reach the city entrance. They find the guards activating turret guns. The people run immediately because the bullets cause many explosions and kill many people. Thomas and his friends try to return to the car, but a man wearing a mask grabs Thomas and takes him into his van. He drives them away. Thomas finds Jorge beating up a masked man until he sees Brenda is fine in front of him. When the young man who took them in the van takes off his mask, it turns out to be Gally, who tried to stop the guys back in the day and whom they thought had died. Thomas punches him, but Newt separates them and convinces Thomas to listen. Gally tells them he works for the other side now and can get them behind the wall. He tells them there is a group of rebels here too, trying to take the city from Wecht. He then takes them to meet the leader, Lawrence, whose face is disfigured by the virus and is connected to an IV drip 24 hours a day so he doesn't turn into a crank. He offers to show Thomas the way into the city, but on the condition that Thomas helps him in return. Thomas agrees. He and Newt walk with Gally through the sewers, while the rest stay behind as collateral. Before they leave, Newt notices his hand is trembling. At night, the young men finally exit the sewers and reach the city. Gally notices they have increased security, which means Wecht knows the rebels are close. They go to a secret place, and Gally tells them that he and his party have been watching the company building for years, but haven't been able to enter because there are soldiers, scanners, and surveillance cameras everywhere. Gally also shows them that Teresa works there and thinks she is the one who will help them enter the building. Afterward, the guys return to the hideout and discuss the plan. They agree to use Teresa after all she did, but Thomas does not like the idea. Newt slams Thomas against the wall and tells him he is hesitating because he still loves her. When Newt notices he went too far, he apologizes and leaves the room. Thomas goes after him, and Newt confesses to him that he is infected too. At this time in the lab, Teresa injects an infected girl with a serum made from Minho's blood, which cures her immediately. Teresa gets very excited and goes to tell Minho the news, but he does not react. As she is leaving, Minho attacks her and yells at her for betraying her friends and blames her for the death of many of their friends. The guards enter to subdue him, but he steals a metal clip before they leave. Later, they call Teresa and tell her the serum failed, and the girl turned into a very violent crank. At night, while Teresa is walking, she spots Thomas in the crowd. She follows him immediately and finds herself in an empty alley. Thomas asks her if she regrets what she did. She admits to him that she often regrets it, but if time went back, she would do the same thing. Then Gally comes from behind her and grabs her. In the next scene, they are sitting in an old church. She confesses to them that Minho is on the 3rd floor with 28 other prisoners. The only way to enter the building is through a registered fingerprint. Gally suggests cutting off her finger to be done with it, but Thomas refuses and makes her remove the tracking devices in their necks. As she is removing them, she notices that Brenda is completely fine after having been infected. Thomas injects Brenda with samples of his blood from time to time, but Thomas tells Teresa he hasn't given Brenda a sample since he first healed her months ago. When Teresa hears this, she is in disbelief, saying Brenda should have turned by now. Thomas refuses to talk about the subject entirely. Before Gally takes her aside, Teresa takes the cotton swab with Thomas's blood on it. After that, the guys dress in company soldier uniforms and enter the building with Teresa, whose presence prevents anyone from suspecting them. When they reach the stairs, Gally goes to insert a device with a virus into the electrical system. While they are waiting, Newt starts coughing and Teresa notices he is infected. After they place the device, Lawrence's men are able to hack the security system. Then the guys go to the floor where Minho is. They shoot the guards in the room immediately and release all the prisoners from the cells. However, Thomas still does not find Minho. When Teresa checks the computer, she discovers Minho has been taken to the lab on the other side of the building, and he is so weak that the session they are going to do on him might kill him. Then Newt and Thomas force Teresa to take them to Minho, while Gally stays there to try to open the vault guarding the serum. After the guys enter the elevator, they meet Jansen, Ava's right-hand man. Luckily, he only speaks to Teresa and tells her they know Thomas was seen outside the walls, telling her to be careful. As they leave, Thomas bumps his shoulder. After they exit the elevator, Teresa starts fighting with the guys. Thomas takes off his mask, and at that same moment, Jansen arrives with his gun raised at him, followed by other guards. Thomas tries to take Teresa hostage, but she pushes him and Newt behind a bulletproof door. As they run, Teresa tells Jansen she did that to trap them, thinking she needs them alive. The alarm goes off in the building, and Jansen requests more security. On the other side, Gally finally reaches the serum and takes the prisoners to escape. They manage to reach the garage, where Brenda is waiting with the bus. However, she finds that Thomas and Newt haven't returned yet. Gally tells her to wait in the bus with the prisoners, and he goes back to look for Thomas and Newt. But then a group of guards arrives, so Brenda is forced to take the children and flee. At this time, Thomas and Newt meet Ava, but before Thomas kills her, Jansen and his men reach them. The guys run from there, shooting any guard in their way as they look for their friend. Minho hears their voices, so he takes the metal hair clip, hits the scientist with it, pushes another guard, and injects a second guard with a sedative. At this time in the corridor, Thomas and Newt keep shooting at the guards, but they are running out of bullets. Newt throws a grenade at them, but they find a guard appearing suddenly blocking the way. At this moment, Minho comes and hits him, throwing him into the glass. He then goes to his friends. When the guys find more guards coming at them, they run again. Jansen and the men block the way in front of them, so the guys enter and hide in a room with a thick metal door. The guards bring a saw and start cutting the door. The guys have no other solution but to break the window and jump into the pool below. After they get out of the pool, they find other guards surrounding them. Suddenly, one of the men shoots his fellow guards. When he takes off his mask, it turns out to be Gally. Meanwhile, Brenda is driving fast through the streets in the bus, getting away from the company car chasing her. After she gets rid of it, she finds other cars coming behind her. When she turns, she finds the whole street blocked by company cars. She gets out of the bus and shoots a flare gun into the air. Frypan lowers a hook into the middle of the street. Brenda connects it to the bus before running back inside. Frypan lifts the bus with the crane. The bus hits buildings before arriving, and the bus's metal bar starts to break due to the weight. Frypan extends the chain so the drop is shorter. The bus lands upright and slides forward. Luckily, no one is hurt. At this time, Teresa is analyzing Thomas's blood sample in the lab. She discovers his blood contains the cure. It doesn't just fight the virus, it destroys it completely. She shows the result to Ava and tells her she needs to reach Thomas. On the other side, Brenda and Frypan take all the children to the hideout, but they find it empty. They discover Lawrence has gone out to gather the people outside the wall, announcing that tonight they will return to live in the city. He rides a car full of explosives, with people running behind him toward the city entrance. When the security team tries to activate the turrets, the rebels have hacked the system and disabled it. The guards shoot at them with weapons, but it isn't enough to stop Lawrence, who crashes the car into the entrance, creating a massive explosion that opens a huge hole, allowing people to enter the city. On the other side, Thomas and his friends continue on their way, supporting Newt, who is getting more tired with time. They hide behind cars in the street to face the people entering the city. At this time, Minho and Gally have reached the aircraft, while Thomas stands in place, not knowing what to do. At this moment, Newt wakes up after turning into a crank and attacks Thomas. The friends grapple and roll on the ground. When Newt regains consciousness, he asks his friend to kill him, but Thomas refuses and keeps fighting him, hoping to buy time. Newt apologizes and takes the gun to shoot himself, but Thomas throws the gun far away. Newt turns completely, grabs a knife, and tries to stab Thomas. He barely cuts him, and Thomas pushes him away. When Newt attacks him again, Thomas has no other choice but to stab him with the knife, killing him. While Thomas is standing crying over his friend, the rest arrive with the serum, but of course, it is too late. Instead of leaving, Thomas returns to the WCKD building, filled with rage to take revenge on Ava, who tells him she can save them all. Thomas throws the gun and volunteers his body to make the cure, but only after making Ava promise to leave the rest of the children alone. At this moment, Jansen comes and shoots Ava, killing her, and injects Thomas with a sedative. In the next scene, Thomas wakes up and finds himself tied up in a lab. Teresa is taking a sample from him to make the antivirus. Jansen explains that this cure will be given only to the elite. He then rolls up his sleeve and reveals he is also infected. When he is about to inject himself with the new serum, Teresa smashes a glass bottle on his head, knocking him unconscious. She then unties Thomas. But Jansen gets up and throws her aside, fighting them for the serum. He beats her left and right. Thomas also gets up to fight him. Although Jansen beats him up too, Thomas refuses to give up. They keep fighting. In the end, Thomas pulls out a gun and threatens both of them. However, at that time, the rebels bombard the building with missiles. Thomas and Teresa seize the opportunity and run. Jansen unleashes 2 cranks on them. Teresa is terrified when she finds Thomas badly injured from the explosion. Jansen comes looking for them, so Teresa distracts him. Thomas throws something heavy at the door, separating them from the cranks, releasing them to attack Jansen, which helps the young couple escape. Teresa helps Thomas until they reach the roof. There, they find the building is burning. When Teresa sees they are about to die, she apologizes to him for everything. At this time, the rebels come with the aircraft but cannot get close due to the fire. The building next to them is also collapsing. Teresa helps Thomas get onto the aircraft. The guys catch him at the last moment, but she does not make it onto the plane with them. She falls from the building and dies. Thomas screams but then loses consciousness. In the next scene, we find they have repaired the ship and are going to a safe island to live. After Thomas wakes up, he takes Newt's necklace and finds a letter inside from Newt, thanking him for everything and asking him to take care of their friends. In this new home, the young people carve the names of their friends who died on a large rock, just as they used to do during the maze experiment. After Thomas writes Teresa's name, he looks at the sea and finds another sample of the cure serum in his pocket. The end.